Hi, everybody. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the lesson planning that we did last night, just to kind of recap a couple things. So for the first step, we did the diagnostic assessment to find out what we need to be teaching our students. So when people ask you, what are you teaching? Why are you teaching it? Our answers should be grounded in the students. This is what the students are ready for, this might need. This is what we think that they're wanting to grapple with or need a little bit of a support or instruction or stretching. Maybe they need more complex text in order to struggle through it or see different examples, all those kinds of things. But you want to be able to point to the data as your reason. The diagnostic assessment last night during class, and the diagnostic assessment assessed for several of these reading components, reading skills, but also literary. So there's a couple different things happening here. So we did that first, and then we looked at the results. We have our wonderful class here. And we looked at the strengths of our students, where they were having lots of success, in some areas where they needed some more support, or it wasn't really clear, or they didn't quite get to it in the response. Lots of different possibilities when we look at the data, but we're looking at it, make some decisions about what to teach. So this is a whole lesson. When you want to decide to put students into stations or small groups, you might have multiple lessons going on, but right now we're just focusing on whole class instruction of reading. And so we looked at this and found out that when we looked at the chart, about anywhere in the two students, what they're doing and how it applies. Specific text might be different if it were a different text. And also places where they might need some support. I don't think this is a deficit way of looking at it. I think it's a way of recognizing how you can be responsive to students' needs, and also draw already sort of understanding what their strengths are. So maybe how we can take their strength theme and maybe apply that to, or main idea, and how that we might help leverage that to enhance their understanding of genre. Because a lot of times the main idea text has to do with the genre. So if it's a novel or fiction, sometimes the theme is a lesson. And if it's not, sometimes it's to inform. So those are some things that are important. Okay, so we look at this and we want to pick out a couple goals that we have for our lesson. So if you want it to be genre, if you want it to be if you want it to be analyzing literary elements, if you want it to be analyzing author's tone, you can see they already know author's tone, they already know literary elements, but they need help analyzing or interpreting. Any of those are on the table here to help students do it in a variety of texts. So you and your partner are going to choose sort of what you really want to focus on, and then you're going to go to the Kylene Beers text, find different strategies to teach it, right? So that's the whole, how do you teach it? That's why we have that book for some resources. So this on the slide deck, I go to our lesson planning template and start looking at that. So we all, on our snapshot document here, this is a good place to start, I think, and before the lesson planning, you have your lesson planning template ready to go. But this is a great way to get a snapshot, right? So you can see Laren, like I already have mine, Laren and Rachel are working on theirs. So they're saying this is an idea. So it means that right away, I know that text has to be nonfiction, any kind of nonfiction, and a text that's going to help with the main idea. They haven't figured out which one that is yet. That's okay. But we want to keep it to something they can manage within the one class period. So 1,000 words or less is usually a good thing for one class period. Going to use a strategy called the anticipation guide. Okay, great. But now they have to find out what anticipation guide, how long it's going to take. Okay. The During reading, you need help with author's purpose, which goes with main idea, makes sense. And so they're going to do a mini lesson about extreme and absolute language, and that's going to be the bulk of their lesson, a chunk, and do a lesson. And then after for conclusion or synthesis, they're going to use the students need help questioning the text. That makes sense, right? It makes sense with main idea of nonfiction, noticing bias and questioning the text. That's a great complementary set of goals for what you do before, during, after. That all makes sense to do those things with a nonfiction text. Goes with the big 3 question strategy. So this framework. So these 3 things. Let's see if anyone else has that. That's okay. We want to put this in here because we don't want to duplicate it. I really don't want everybody to do a nonfiction essay. Maybe we can do some fiction. We can do some genres. We can do like mystery or fantasy. We can do poetry. You can do memoir. That's nonfiction, but it's not the same as an essay. So you can get a variety text that would be helpful, and that might help you think about different kinds of goals. Once you have these 3, what you're going to do, get students ready to learn, what you're going to do during to help them chunk the text and work through it, and what you're going to do at the end in order to wrap it up, then you're going to transfer those things into the lesson. So you can see in looking at Lauren and Rachel's, they're going to spend 5 to 7 minutes. Let's put the strategy here. Anticipation guide. 30 to minutes. Their strategy. And 5 to 7 minutes, their close. So that's how you kind of frame out the lesson plan. These parts in here are going to be the steps. And that's what we have to kind of going to do next. What are you going to do first, second, third? And then what's the co-teacher going to be doing? So those are some things I want you to keep thinking about. And it might be a good idea for you and your partner to keep meeting with each other. You know, maybe you have a once a week where you can talk through this, or maybe you assign each other things to think about asynchronously and then come together to work on it and collaborate. When selecting the text, it might be helpful to look at the survey. So in our survey responses, you can see what might students be interested in. See the different kinds of people like. You can see the different kinds of non people like. Topics of interest. Love, relationships, feminism, their experiences, disability, oceans. So these might give you some ideas when you're trying to select the text. How do you select a text? Well, this goes right back to what we've been talking about. Funds of knowledge, student strength, student interests, all of those kinds of things. Your choices should be driven by what the student's strengths and needs and interests are. So your rationale is, what do students need? What kind of support, stretching experiences can come with? Maybe not from a definition, from the lens of how do I stretch them into new experiences, new ways of thinking, new ways of learning, drawing on what they already know how to do. How do I stretch their interests into new places and new experiences and new genres, drawing on what they already know and love to do? Those decisions are always driven by the students. So that's the idea behind this introductory lesson plan that we're working on, so that when you see, you're always driving your decisions based on what interests them and what they need, and your expertise that you've been developing all these years in the English department at OSU. So I hope that this video has been really helpful in thinking through the lesson plan a little bit. And it's going to be constantly evolving. When it is due officially is before you actually teach the class. So your deadline is going to be different depending on when you're teaching. So for example, Rachel and Laren, their deadline is going to, I think it's going to be this weekend or maybe Monday or something. I have to check that. But their deadline is going to be before they teach it. So I can see their entire lesson and give them feedback. But also on the day of the lesson, I'm also going to give feedback during the lesson as needed. You're not going to just be left to sink or swim. It's going to be a learning experience, lab that we're kind of like experimenting and stretching and taking risks together so we can really walk through those experiences. So we learn through experiences, we learn through doing, and that's what this is all about. So if you have any questions, I hope this video was helpful.